This next fight, man, is really one for the diehards. I think that this fight card really picked up after that last bout. And you look at a fight like Ryan Hall and Ilia Topuria, like, where do you start? I mean, we talk about a guy like Ryan Hall who just got so much notoriety after the Ultimate Fighter showing probably one of the best tough seasons of all time with the Conor McGregor Uriah Faber feud with the TJ Dillashaw stuff kicking in. It was so perfect. And Ryan Hall, despite the loss that he suffered and then came back for the final and ended up winning, his career really took off after that. He's considered a 4-0 fighter in the UFC, and after beating Artem Lobov, the three wins that he's pretty much put together look phenomenal. You get the Gray Maynard decision win, got the BJ Penn heel hook finish, and then the fight that I'm probably going to talk about the most, which is his most recent fight, is the Darren Elkins fight. Now, first things first, I don't know how you go from a 24-month layoff to an Ilia Topuria 10-0 fighter. But, 36-year-old Ryan Hall definitely has his hands full with this one. His media day interview pretty much sums up everything you would want to go into as a fight with a 10-0 fighter who's almost, 15 years younger than you, closer to 12. But I use the word almost. I just think that there's so much working against him. But then to see the demeanor, to see the poise, to see the calm, cool, collected Ryan Hall back, it's something that just gives you a nice little vibe, right? I think that he's such a dangerous fighter on the ground, especially with that leg, Mr. 50-50 himself. But there's interesting things about the Darren Elkins fight I want to talk about. It's not like Elkins wasn't a bloody mess in that fight, right? How did he do damage? If you look at the way Ryan Hall throws his punches, I swear it's only to set up kicks. He barely throws punches at all. And I mean, the spinning stuff really does do well for him because it tends to either help him land something or get him a little bit closer to the fighter, which where he can then roll into something and get an opportune position. It's really cool to see a guy that keeps chasing that same thing, but has such an underrated kicking game that goes along with it. He landed an absolutely beautiful spinning heel kick at the end of the first round against Darren Elkins, and I think that's where you were sold, at least, on the striking game being there, at least from the kicking perspective. I do think there's some work to be done when it comes to punches. I'm going to be completely honest with that. But again, being able to take certain amount of damage or avoid damage, I should say. I think that's where Ryan Hall really stands out as a primo fighter. I think that for a guy who everything that he's going to be able to do, come especially to the ground game and how he sets it up, it's just like, a superhero with a finishing move. It's just something that you really have to avoid. And I think there's like a very nice pocket there to be able to do that. Darren Elkins, was great at just not getting into there. But then there's places where you can try and do damage. I think that Bisping said it best during that fight. There's a range where you have to kind of still let Ryan Hall know that this is not a comfortable position for him either. If you're able to get past the legs of it and even do some damage to the body, land a couple big shots in there without getting caught and being, kind of have your wits about you, there's a real opportunity there to flip that fight, because he's going to keep going down to the ground. And if you're able to maintain that safe distance from like any type of leg lock, being able to do damage in that position is really going to help you find success, because he's going to be down there at least 10 times in a fight. So when you look at the way Topuria fights, I mean, he showed so much movement and wrestling skill against Yusuf Zalal. He's a very, I want to say, technical striker, and in the way that he does it, it's just so much body work. And I think this is a very tough matchup for Ryan Hall, because in the things that you need to be good at, I think Topuria has it all. I don't think he's going to show fear one bit, and I think he will be smart enough to avoid the areas where he should on the ground. But you look at the Damon Jackson fight, I mean, he knocks him out clean with a headshot, but he wasn't even throwing that much wild, combos to the head. He was getting into the body, filling up really nicely. That's what I like to see from him. He has this like big double hook combo to the body, which I think really, I mean, you look at Damon Jackson, could barely sustain that for even a round. And when you look at the way you want to defend takedowns or even have these like rolls coming at you, I think that he's going to be a guy that's athletic enough to get around that. that's where I think Darren Elkins was a little bit less of a, competitor than Ilia Topuria will be in those areas, because he's going to be able to move around. I think that he's going to have such a quickness to him that when he gets into that boxing range, which is exactly where you want to be with Ryan Hall, it's not like he's trying to lock up these crazy body locks and take you to the ground. There's a very simple way that he tries to get it to the ground, and it's by rolling into a leg and really trying to pull you down into that, whether it's a heel hook or any type of submission. That's where he's trying to go with it. And even even going back to that Elkins fight, you have that opportunity where you can see there's just this perfect range of boxing, right? I think that if you're able to avoid those kicks that are coming at you like crazy, all these spinning moves and everything like that, it just makes the most sense, right? So with a guy like Topuria, who's a good wrestler and a great boxer, it just seems like he has all the tools right now to be able to pull this one off. And you think about the boxing range and the ability to even notice when this fight might hit the ground and be able to step out of it or move out of the way. I think those are the areas where Topuria is going to be tested. But at the same time, it's like, if he's in boxing range, he doesn't have the kicks to worry about, and he can very much hold his own as a wrestler. That's the beautiful thing about Topuria's game, is it's so well suited for MMA. The boxing range is there. Doesn't throw crazy amount of kicks. He has good leg kicks, which I think help him set things up. But the big thing about him is just big combos till he finds his opportunity. And if he doesn't, he will out-wrestle you and grind out that victory. It's exactly what he did to Youssef Zalal. And when you think about the Zalal fight, I mean, that one even went 3 rounds and he barely landed. 13 strikes in total for the 3-round fight. But then you look at the Jackson fight, in a first-round finish, he landed over 30 significant strikes. So for me, I'm really liking what he's doing with his game and just becoming a better mixed martial artist. And I think with a guy like Ryan Hall, that's going to pose a lot of problems. And for Ryan, it really is stay out of that boxing range and keep finding those kicks, man. They do great damage to absolutely anybody. And I think filling the body, getting Topuria tired. The cool thing about Ryan Hall is, even if you look at the Elkins fight, he's barely breathing hard. His movement is not athletic and it's not quick, but it's smart. And that, to me, it's like, you always hear that saying, work smarter, not harder. I truly believe that Ryan Hall exhibits that in a big way. And with a 24-month layoff, I'm really curious to see where this overall striking game in MMA lands, because again, 36 years old, he does not have time on his side. And a guy like Topuria, who's just 24 years old, is very much climbing the ranks in a big way. And both of these guys are phenomenal grapplers. And so it just really makes me think about where all this fight can go. And I got to be honest, if it stays standing, it's going to be interesting to see, can the great boxer like Topuria really get in close and start doing damage? Or is Ryan Hall actually that good at kicking to be able to keep a primo athlete like Topuria at bay, what could be 3 rounds? That's the part that makes me the most excited about this. You see the way Topuria fills the body. If Ryan Hall is not taking those very well, I think this could actually end up being a pretty short night for him. We haven't seen him deal with so much adversity in his UFC career especially, but I think this is a very primo case where stylistically and athletically, he's just got such a tough matchup in Topuria. So I will be very excited to say that this could probably be one of my top fights of the night, if not in my top 3. I think that it speaks so much to just where the UFC is going with, some of the big fan favorites like Ryan Hall, who can still, take that 5-0 UFC career to a new level. And a guy like Topuria, who's 10-0 at 24 years old and is making a huge splash very slowly. And even with this being a prelim fight, I just can't believe what we're going to get to see. So as always, baby, let's take a look at these lines. I'm hella pumped for it. And there it is. Without question, right? Topuria actually a much larger favorite than I would have thought, but I'm not surprised by it in any way. Opens at a minus 267 and is now flirting at about a minus 240, minus 250 as a favorite, with Ryan Hall opening as a plus 220, but now sitting a bit more under that plus 200 range, around that plus 185, plus 190. I think it's an absolutely phenomenal fight. Mark my words, the next 2 fights, this one and the next, are just such beautiful setups for what we would be considering the bigger names in MMA, because I think these guys are absolutely going to throw down, and you have an absolute chance at both these fights having fight of the night or performance of the night all over it. So I think that that's going to be fun.